Medical disclaimer. Please note that the information shared on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health regimen, including starting new therapies, supplements, or treatments. While we discuss cutting-edge research and advancements in cellular medicine, individual health needs vary, and professional guidance is essential. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that neither Dr. Seeds nor the podcast team is providing personalized medical recommendations.
Welcome back to the Redox Revolution. We're continuing the conversation here of who is Dr. Seeds? It's a question we get a lot from the patient side and from the medical education company side when people are coming to see you or when they're buying one of our courses and they're like, who the hell is this guy? So, this is a long time coming.
Oh boy.
We just finished up talking about kind of where you came from, family lineage, how you grew up, and we're going to dive into the education part of your life, going through school and everything. And I think the best intro into this is actually what you originally wanted to do. You remember telling me this, how you wanted to move out to Colorado?
Yeah. Well, let me back up, and I want to add something. You made me think of something. It's so interesting. And this is just we'll go into this, but this is going to follow this last podcast we did about me. And I want to tell you one experience that is so embedded in my brain, in my life, that's the core of, I think, where you see a lot of my mission statements, life, my things that I've tried to instill in you and your brothers. And this will be crystal clear. This is a story of my when I was very young. Very first time my father let me go into the hardware store to get something, and I got
this story,
and I got to pay for it. And I'll never forget. I went in the store. I was just so excited that I got to go in, and I couldn't even see over the counter. And I bought something, and I was. At the time, it was back at that time, I was really good at math and just knew some things really quick. And I all of a sudden realized that the person who was just talking to me probably wasn't paying attention, but he gave me back too many pennies and too many nickels and dimes and stuff. And so I made out, I was like, so I came back in the car, and my dad's like, so how'd it go, Billy? And I'm like, oh, it went really well, Dad. I go, I even came back with even more money than I should have. And he's like, well, what? Tell me, what do you mean? And I go, the guy gave me too much change. I had to give him the little white slip, and he looked at it, and he saw he's counting the money in my hands, and he goes, you're right. And he goes, but you're wrong too. You need to take care of this. And I'm like, Dad, what are you talking about? I just made some money. Isn't this cool? And he's like, he started getting mad, like really, like seriously, like when my dad he just looks at me and he goes, I want you to fucking, my dad, maybe that's where I got some of my language. Go back in and take care of this. And I didn't know what he meant to take care of. What do you mean take care of? He wanted me to give the money back that was appropriate because I was not holding up my end of this deal of, hey, I was making out with this guy, made a mistake. I needed to do the right thing. It was like, and I'm telling you, I was like 5 or 6. I mean, that's back then that you could do anything when you were 5 or 6, okay? And I'm trying to comprehend this, like, wait a second, I just made all these cool nickels and pennies, and I'm doing really well, and my dad wants me to go give it back. I'm just like, what is that? And I tried to argue. Well, that was really wrong. And my dad just said, look, There's some things you need to know right away, and this is a perfect time. Get your fucking ass back in that store, and you give that man his money back, and you tell him what happened. And I'm like, yes, sir. So I'm like bumming out that I'm losing this money. And I go back in the store. I can still remember what the guy was wearing. I can tell you this. It's just so creepy. I can tell you every little part of this counter, the hardware store, what this guy looked like, the glasses, partly balding. And this guy looking at me as I came back in, and I waited for somebody else to go through the line. And then I walk up and I look at him, and I put down the change that he was due. And he's like, "What is this, son?" And I said, "Sir," I said, you gave me too much money." He goes, "What?" He goes, I go, "You gave me too much money back, and I need to give you back your money." And I had the slip, and I put the slip up there, and I took my other change, I put it all on there to show him. And the guy like goes through everything, and he's like, and it was probably 5 cents. It was probably, who knows, right? I can't. And he's looking at me, and he goes, "Oh, I'll never forget." He just smiles, and he said, "Son," he goes, "this is, I can't remember the exact words, but he made me feel amazing. Like what he said to me, I can't recall it, but he made me feel good." And I'm like, "Whoa, what is this?" All I did was bring this guy's money back over a couple pennies. And I'll never forget. I came back in the car, and my dad's like, "Did you take care of it?" I go, "Dad, the guy was really nice, and he couldn't thank me enough." And he goes, "Well, I hope you've learned something." I go, this is what's right. And this is how you have to live your life. Kind of that. I'm probably making more of it than it was, but it was like that had such an impact on me.
It's core memory. Yeah.
Well, it was like, oh my gosh. It's like, where else can that lead you in doing the right thing? Like, how many people like do the wrong thing? It just had me questioning so many things. And yet I felt so amazing.
Well, I think that's the first instance of your dad kind of steering your education. And I know he had to steer you back into kind of where you were going to be applying or looking to go to school, because you kind of wanted to go a different route. You wanted to go to school in Colorado.
So now we get to the story of, so my plan was to go to Boulder, Colorado, and go to college and ski. And, I grew up in Minnesota. We skied in Minnesota. I did all the racing and freestyle stuff and all that stuff. And I loved skiing, was my thing. Wasn't hockey. I had a brother who was an amazing hockey player, another brother who was an amazing skier. But you were either skied, you played hockey, or cross country, you did something. And so I was headed there's no doubt I was going to Colorado and going to live the life and, maybe go to school, but I was going to go ski. And I'll never forget when my dad was asking me about, getting my applications ready or what are you doing to prepare for school? And I'm like, "Well, Dad, there's only one place I'm going, and that's Boulder." And my dad looks at me with no hesitation and said, "The fuck you are."
He knew. Yeah.
You're not going out there.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're going to think you're going to pay for it or do it yourself, you're not going there. As long as you're my son, you're going to college and you're not going to play. And I was like devastated. Like, what? You just changed my whole plans, Dad. Like, what is this bullshit? So yeah, I had to come to grips with that a little bit as I was making decisions to go to school.
They say that parents live their life vicariously through their children, and now Brian is a ski instructor in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and that asshole just sends us pictures of him skiing all day.
Well, he's someone who's living the dream that I didn't get to do that. But he did go to school, and he did very well in as a computer engineer at school at Ohio State. I mean, top of his class, and got an amazing consulting job and kicked the hell out of what he did, and then calls me up one day and says, "Hey, Dad, you know what? I think I want to be a ski instructor." And I'm like, "That's awesome! Like, are you serious? Like, this is like, let's go for it. You've already proven to me you can kill it as a young consultant, killing it, making buku bucks, and young guy." Like, hey, you have every right to make this decision. And so that's what he's been doing, and it's been a blast to see him have so much fun and follow his passion, right? So that's been cool.
So he's been lucky, right, to be able to have you there to help guide him through college, after college, give him that affirmation that, he has the ability to make those decisions. Do you want to go a little bit into your experience going into school and kind of the way that your father helped push you into what you wanted to do, where you wanted to go, both via his actions and via his passing?
So I went into college. So my dad convinced me I had to go to college, which was a feat. I tried to have Mom weigh in, and Mom's like, "Listen to your father," And my mom was probably just saying 20 Hail Marys, and lighting candles at the church. Thank God this happened. He's not going there. And so I remember, my dad would ask me, "What do you want to do in college?" And I'm like, "I have no idea. You just changed my whole life. Like, I wanted to ski. Like, what do you do in college?" I had no idea what you did in college. That's how oblivious I was to the world, right, that I lived in. And my dad said, "Well, you have interest." And I liked economics at the time. I liked like weird things. And he's like, "Well, business could be a great place." And I was like, "Yeah." So I went to college with pretty much the intention. I mean, I started off in a different way, but business was my, finance was going to be my major, and potentially accounting. And so that's where I headed.
And there's layers to things, right? I'm getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here, but it's so funny how over the course of all of the SSRP events, you make fun of yourself when you're like, "I'm an orthopedic surgeon teaching about peptides." But I think the even funnier one is going back even further and thinking about, you were a finance major who went to medical school.
Okay, well, let's back up then. So, yes, I was. So this is where it gets crazy. So, getting right into the beginning of school, and I actually went to college early. I was one of those younger people that I still wasn't old enough to be in college. And they didn't keep you back in your right age group. I started out early, so I was still 16, 17 going to college, and so why did I bring that part up? Anyways, I started in school, and unfortunately, I was back for a weekend. And as I told you, I used to train with my dad. He was my best friend. We'd train together, we'd run together, and I'd come back early because I was going to catch my father and maybe work out with him. And he'd already been gone up to the track to start running. And so, long story short, my father dropped and died essentially in front of myself and my younger brother as we went up to look for him. And he died, and it was, I still remember what he was wearing and the clothes he was wearing and laying there, and there was nothing I could do. It was horrifying. And here was this guy that I didn't even know he was dying, but then I could see that life kind of left him, and it was done, and I could see no movement, and it was a tougher thing. I believe I kept my younger brother in the car, kept him away from seeing that, and younger brother, and it was one of the most. It changed my life drastically right then and there. That there was nothing I could do to save him. And here I was, this guy, I thought I was on top of the world, a good athlete and living life high and, totally all about myself. And I could do anything. No one could stop me. And I couldn't help him. And it was just as horrifying. It was just this whole, I can still feel it. I mean, this whole thing came over me like, where do I go from here? What happens? And I got to go home and I got to tell Mom, and it all was just horrible. And they still took him to the emergency room, still tried to revive him, but I knew he was dead. And then dealing with that in the emergency room, and then going in and seeing him again, and it, at that young of an age, it was devastating. But then, in the same token, I was like, and I kept asking, how could this happen in a guy that's healthy, loving life, doing all the right things? I thought, how could he just drop dead? That's not right. That's not supposed to happen. And so I remember the crazy part of his eyes still open, that they weren't closed, which is weird, right? When he was dead. And I just remember, making a promise to myself that this is wrong, this is so wrong, and I'm going to figure this out. And it's crazy that I'm this old and it still affects me. It was really tough. And so I had to assume I knew my dad, and was like, hey, I knew he was telling me, you're in charge. No time, let's get things rolling and take care of everybody. And so all of a sudden I assumed the roles of watching out for Mom, and now my brothers weren't my brothers. I was in charge of my brothers, and it was just an odd thing. And then that's when I started realizing who my father was, and all these crazy things of what he had done, and how people came from all over the world to see him at his funeral, and all these honorarium things he had. I'm just like, oh my God, who is this guy? Like, he was something. Like, holy shit. I mean, I was like, and I'm like, my brother, like, did you know Dad did that? Like, Mom, you never told me. I don't know if my mom knew this stuff. I know she did, but she's like, well, this is what your dad did. And anyways, went through all of those type of things, and just realizing that this was, it made it even tougher for me, because then I'm like, oh my gosh, I got some things that I got to step into here. So that drastically changed my life, as far as I lost a part of myself. I lost this person that was just, I was a very, very happy, not that I'm still not happy, but I was just a different person, focused on myself, all about me. I was the greatest, to, okay, enough of yourself, dude. Time to buckle up and this is life. And so all of these things of what my father taught me about questions and asking, and all of a sudden my brain just started exploding with all of those type of, how am I, what do I need to do? It's like asking all the questions of getting through all of that process, and then going back to, I had to go back to school and be this. Now I was really lost, because I was like, what am I doing with my life? And that's when my passion for understanding this, I don't know if you would call it, this medical crisis that happened in my family. How could that happen? And could I ever be smart enough to understand that? And I remember, I'll remember some cool things. I had so at the time I was very concerned, and my dad had all these people that were looking out for us, and I was really healthy, and I wanted to make sure I was healthy, and so I had this top cardiologist bring me in and do a stress test on my heart at 17, like, really?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were just helping me it was my way of getting through this process. And I killed this, like, they'd never seen anybody destroy this, go to this level and keep their heart rate. And it was kind of cool to hear them all coming back like, well, Billy, your heart is really good. You don't have anything to worry about. And I remember talking to the cardiologist, who probably never was down at a test before like that, but there for me. And I'm asking him all these questions, and he's just, I can never forget him kind of stepping back and looking at me and going, those are really good questions. Because I wanted to know. And he was like, and I said, how am I ever going to figure this out? And I don't even know what I was figuring out. And this guy, he kind of reinforced that you're on the right road. I believe you're going to figure some of these things out for yourself, and you're going in the right direction. So I had this cardiologist kind of reconfirming, okay, I need to look in. And I remember asking him about nutrition, and he didn't know shit about nutrition. I remember talking to him, and I'm like, God, I would have expected this guy to know more. Like, my dad knew way more about this than he did. And I thought that was really interesting, that I'm talking to him, and that's nowadays, that you got to know that stuff. But so I started putting these things together. And so, long story short, I mean, I could go on and on. I don't know where we stop with this. I go back to school, and I'm like totally lost interest in finance and so forth. And I'd show up when I needed to. I'd take a test when I needed to. But I spent a lot of time researching what I wanted to know, what I wanted to learn. And I didn't even know how to research. And I didn't even know how to use the library correctly. But I had a couple initial areas I started in, and then something just dropped into my life after spending time researching and doing what I wanted to do. That's what I spent time doing. I never did what I was supposed to do, because I wanted to learn about the body. I wanted to learn. I was just fascinated. So anything I could get my hands on, I was just going and going with no plan, no structure. No, I just did stuff. And I was gaining all of this knowledge that I could. And then this book came out called Life Extensions, a practical analysis. It was like a 900-page book that I just happened on right when it was published. And it was published by, Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw, who were.
You can't even remember my name half the time. How do you remember these two?
because I read their book 32 or 34 times. Because their book, so this book was this 900-page book that I was like, I'm looking, I thought it was like somebody sent this to me, because it was a book that had all these things I had been looking at, but had it in a format that, like, oh my gosh. It started off with like the philosophy or psychology of this process of how people think. And I'm like, oh my gosh, these people, they're from MIT and UCLA or something like that. And they were, I thought they had the credentials. Mm-hmm. And they wrote this, it was 900 pages, like probably 800 something, but 900 pages of some serious, thick, like, book of all the things of life extension, talking about antioxidants and vitamins and the stuff that I had been already reading. And so this book was my Bible. And in fact, in the book, what changed my whole life was it taught you how to think and ask better questions, but how to research. Because it was very difficult to understand that, you had to have a little bit of some training, I think, and this book trained me into how to use the library to get the microfilm or the article. Back then it was microfilm, and to get one article could take me, Matt, a couple weeks.
Yeah.
2 to 3. One article where I can get an article in a second now. I mean, that was my life, was building this repository of articles, reading this book, constantly marking in this book, which I'll tell you about, that's a shame, but this book was my Bible. And I've read it and reread it and reread it because it was the structure that I built everything out of for what I wanted to know, not what anybody else was talking about. I was interested in it because I wanted answers. That was my life in college. Like, people were like, what's Billy doing? He's not in class. And I'd be like, either in my room or the library. I mean, people didn't know this part existed. A couple people knew. And they thought I was a nut job with just, what are you doing? And this book was, I just thought it was amazing. And I used it, and it helped me to get to this place of where I'm actually graduating with my finance degree. And I'm thinking, all of a sudden, I think it started because I started helping some people with their homework, like in chemistry, or helping them with their biochem, or helping them with their physics. I don't know. I was just things I knew. I mean, it was just.
So let's go through the story then of you actually applying to medical school.
Oh my gosh. This is the greatest story ever.
Yeah.
Fuckers. All right. So long story short. So I decided all of a sudden, I get this degree. I'm getting this degree, but I don't want finance. And I had a minor in accounting and a major in finance. And I'm like, you know what? I think I need to go to medical school. I want to go into medicine to use this knowledge, because I really love it, and I'm using it for myself. I'm like, I think I know a little bit. And so I just have it in my mind. I'm like, okay, how do I do this? Well, I guess there's a department of where there are people that help you at the school, and the head of the person, the head of the person who ran this program to get people into medical school. I don't know what it was called.
Was it still called a provost, or?
I don't know what it was called at that time.
Whatever. Yeah.
And you had to make an appointment, and I made an appointment, and back then
Dean?
No. This is at my college.
Oh,
to get, because I didn't know how to do. What do you do? Because I wanted.
It's like one of the counselors.
It's because you had pre-med people, like they were part of a club, pre-med club, all this stuff. I didn't know what all that was.
Yeah.
And I helped. They helped me kind of get to this person and say, well, you got to talk to this person because they'll get you. They'll help you out. And so I set up a meeting, and back then all I wore were T-shirts and jeans and stuff, and I had longer hair, kind of like yours a little bit, not quite as long. So I show up at this interview. I didn't know it was an interview, but to meet with this person, and I sat down, and he was a biochem professor that I never had a class with because I didn't have biochem. Anyways, I said, hello, I'm so-and-so. I'm in the business school, and I'd like to go to medical school. And basically, this guy looks at me back, and he goes, well, you can't do that. And I'm like, what do you mean I can't do that? Can I just go there's a test you take? Can I take the test? Because I wanted to take the test. I thought I could take it. I probably need more help, but it could, and he's like, no, you can't do that. And I wouldn't waste your time. And I'm sorry, son, but this is just not the right direction for you. And I'm like, he totally just crushed me. I'm like, and then I got very angry very quickly, like, fuck you. I'm going to are you kidding me? You're the guy who's supposed to be helping me, and you're telling me I can't do this because I'm in a different school and I want to take the test. And he just wrote me off. He just said, yeah, we'll see you later. I'm like, oh my God. So I wasn't taking no for an answer, and I picked up the phone and I called up the school the city school, the town school, the medical school. And I just cold called them, and I said, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm looking to go to medical school, and I'm a finance major, and I was just told by the people that are supposed to guide me here at my college that I can't do it. And I'll never forget hearing this person on the end. It was a secretary who was actually talking to somebody. Oh, I think you need to hear this one. Or she's like, 1 second. And she's like, you could hear her talking, like hearing me and being very nice to me. And like, well, just a moment. And I knew she was talking to somebody. The next thing she said, could you come down and meet us here? How about if we make an appointment and you come meet us and we talk about this? And I'm like, oh my God, somebody wants to help me. And I'm like, this is awesome. So that was actually the first time I had to really know about going, like, I'm going to a place and I got to look good, and man, I got to get a tie. I got to get a coat. I got to do all this stuff. Oh my gosh. Cut my hair. I don't know. I don't think I cut my hair. Anyways, I show up and I walk in it was the medical school. I walk in, I meet the person who took my call, who's a very nice person, and says, oh yes, have a seat, Mr. Seeds. And I sat down there for a few minutes, and within a couple minutes, I was in this conference room, and here comes this person and sits down with me and says, what can we do to help you? And I said, here's my problem. And I laid it out, and they looked at me, and they're like, well, you can't just take the test. You have to have these things done to get into medical
prereqs.
School. You have to have prereqs. You got to take this class and this class and this class. And I'm like, well, I want to just take the test. And they're like, how about this? You're graduating. What would you think if we came up with a plan and you went and you took these classes and just show us that your knowledge base is good and that you can do this, and then take the test. Like, if you meet these requirements, if you can do this over the summer, and this is quite a bit of work you're going to have to do, then I think people would take a chance and look at you. And I thought about it, and the person wrote it all out on this piece of paper, like the plan. Boom, boom, boom. And that's me, I just needed the plan, right? And I'm like, okay, well, if that's what I got to do, then that's what I got to do. And I'm thinking, and another year at school? Heck yeah. Like, come on. But this was at a more serious level in the summer. And then they kind of laid out what happens, like, to go to medical school. So they said, well, look, if you do this and say this works, then you apply for what's called early admission. and then you won't get into the next year. And I'm like, what? I got to wait another year. And, well, you could finish that chemistry degree. You could really do something. That would be a great thing for you. It would only help you, and you could take more courses geared toward medical school. And I thought about it, and it all made sense. So this person gave me an amazing plan, and I said, all right, well, thank you so much. And they said, and we have that plan here. So if these things work out for you, make sure that you send your information here, because we have an early admissions plan. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. Okay. Sounds like, to me, I'm thinking in the back of my head, well, that's where I'd go, because you guys are helping me. Like, why would I do anything else? Anyway, so I went back. I remember telling my mom, and my mom's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm going to school for the summer. I'm going to take these classes. And everybody's like, what is he doing? Like, I had so many people trying to tell me, talk me out of it. And I'm just like, no, I know what I'm doing. And so did everything, did the summer, crushed everything. I loved it. It was like reinforcement. Ended up taking the test, did great. And I applied for early admission. I thought, well, shit, I'll just send it all to the school, because I don't want to go anywhere else. And because they liked me. I didn't know you probably should have signed up for like all these schools. I had no idea. And the next thing I know, I get a letter. Letter for an interview for early admission, and I'm like, and I'm thinking that's just normal. Yeah, they're going to interview you. Yeah, I had no idea of what plays behind the scenes. Like I thought everybody got an interview. I thought, So I go down to my interview. I walk in the door, and there's that secretary sitting there looking at me. Hello, Mr. Seeds. And I'm like, God, she remembers me. What the heck is this? And she goes, have a seat. And I go in and I sit down for my interview, and in comes and sits down the person that gave me the plan. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're the person. And this was a female who had given me this plan. And as I sat down, I almost got tears in my eyes. I pulled out my piece of paper, because I kept it. Mm-hmm. I actually put it in a frame to guide me. Like, I'm like, this is my here's my next Bible plan. Here, this is it. And I took it out and I put it on the table, and I had all my marks. Did all this stuff. I'm here. Thank you so much, because I want to go to your medical school. And it was the craziest interview, because it was basically, and I think I had to meet with someone else also, and an older person who was just asking me great questions. But I met with her, and she's like, would you like to come to our medical school? And I'm like, wow, how do you know that quick? What is this? And she was the dean of the medical school. I'm like, and I didn't know what dean meant, like I learned later, like, oh my God, that's big stuff. This was the dean who got me, like, hey, we knew you'd do this. We're so excited to have you, and you're going to add something different to our school. We're looking for people like you, like somebody who looked at me in a different way, and I felt so good, and I was like, yeah, I'm coming. So to end this, where I was headed. So I waited till I got my official letter and said, you were early application. I think I was the only one from my school that got early admission at that time. Like, there's only one of us, and I got it. And from all the people applying. And I didn't realize that was a big deal either. And so I remember going I set up an appointment again with this guy, and I go in
your guidance counselor person?
The guidance counselor, whoever the frick this guy was, because I just needed to give him a story, because I didn't want him to do this to someone else. And I came in, and he didn't recognize me at all, and but he's smiling, and he's like, yeah. And I said, I said, I hear you, you know, I'm talking about medical school and I hear you've got somebody in, and he's like, he was just in a happy mood because he's like, yeah, it's great when we get one of our best people into, you know, to represent us, that early admission's a great thing. It's something we hold our, you know, we're very excited about. And this young man, I go, well, that's me. And he's like, oh, he pulls out his stuff. William C. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. And he goes, oh, well, of course, you know, we start talking. And I go, do you remember me? I'm that guy from business school that came here and you told me I couldn't do this. And this guy's like face he just whites out, you know, and I'll never forget it. I was like, you told me I couldn't, and I was really pissed. And I don't want you to do this to somebody else. I mean, you took my dreams. You tried to take everything away from me and something I worked so hard in my own mind to accomplish, and you weren't willing to help me. And look what I did. And so maybe that'll help you next time. And the guy didn't know what to say. You know, it was for me, it was a momentous period in my life, you know, I felt accomplished. And so that's the story of me going to medical school. And I did finish. I stayed the year to finish my chem degree, got my chem degree, and then went off to medical school.
So then you get to medical school, and that's where you actually start to find some of your love for the research side of things, right? I know you'd already been reading this book that you said, this 900 pages, where you remember the two authors' frickin' names, and you can't remember me and my brother's names, but still.
Right. Yeah, so I got into medical school, and I got the very beginning was just awesome. I loved some of the things they were teaching early on, but then I started to see a lot of it was root memory things. It wasn't what they were really missing, which I had already known, like pathways and really getting into the clinical relevance, which was missing. It was like this big misstep. But I was realizing that I got kind of disinterested and wasn't going to classes, and would just show up and take the tests and stuff. And
in medical school,
yeah, first couple of years, which didn't help me. But I thought I was going to be this dual MD PhD guy. You know, I started off with research, and I spent a lot of time at the beginning. Yeah. On my project was specific to maternal fetal medicine. I was kind of jumping into my dad's space, looking at a preeclamptic model on prostaglandin E2, which was way ahead of its time, by the way, I think. I spent a tremendous amount of time on that. For any of these people that do go to medical school and combine their PhD with their MD, hats off to them, because I realized, I was spending way too much time, and then it wasn't as well organized. My advisor was hard and demanding, and you had to keep up. I think you had to split up things, and they started to split timing up. But the bottom line is, I got very disinterested very fast because it wasn't going the way I wanted it to go, as usual. Yeah. And I presented some of the initial work. I remember at the University of Michigan, where I just got decimated and.
Which is not where you went to medical school. You went to medical school at the University of Cincinnati. Yeah. So you were presenting at Michigan.
Yeah, and I got destroyed. But they weren't listening to me, and I couldn't argue. It was just this world of that it was this place where you run into a little bit of knowledge can be dangerous, but doesn't everybody have the same knowledge base? And that's what was like. People were missing where this was going with my work. And it was my fault too. But I got very disinterested very fast. And so, long story short, that kind of messed up my matriculation a little bit through school, but eventually I headed into orthopedics, and I thought orthopedics was where I wanted to be because I had a great mentor, and someone who also instilled some amazing things in me about questioning, and I spent a lot of time with them and had a great time as a medical student learning about orthopedics, and found a world of where I thought, boy, there's so many applications of the things I know for tissue healing, restoration of function, things that apply in orthopedics. I thought, what a perfect field for me to enter into, and that was my push to get into to head down that road.
So then when you officially went down that road and it came time to apply to residency and everything, is the residency application something we can even put on the record and talk about yet? Or is that a story that is for the archives only? It's my favorite story, but I don't know if that's a good one to...
No, we could definitely talk about it. I don't think I'm old enough that
It feels like a blast from the past. It feels like one of those stories where you're like, that could never happen now.
It can't. It can't. My whole life couldn't happen now. I mean,
This is my favorite story you have, by the way. This is the best one. You're sure?
Yeah. Are we saving it for the next?
No, we can go another 15 minutes tops.
All right.
Yeah.
So short. Long story short, you're applying. You get interviews. I was very lucky. Had many interviews around the country, and I got this esteemed invitation in New York for a residency that had a tremendous history, and the chief at the time was the head of the whole field of orthopedics, and there were many very famous orthopedists that had written articles that were part of the faculty. And so I got an interview, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to this interview. And so I got an interview. And I'll never forget walking in, and there weren't many of us in the waiting room. And they brought me into this library, and it was the Fielding Library, and Dr. Fielding was the very famous orthopedist, and this library was amazing, full of every orthopedic book known to mankind. There was no library, I think, like this anywhere. Mm-hmm. There's this big conference table where all of these attendings were sitting, and there was probably 12 of them in the room. It was a group.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. So I walk in, and I sit down, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to get grilled. What are these guys? They're all what
are they going to ask me?
Yeah, this is crazy. And so I'll never forget the guy running the interview, Dr. Zickel, the Zickel Nail, very famous guy, great guy, by the way, who ended up being a great mentor of mine. He's like, so Bill, what are you doing here? What? And the guys are saying, yeah, what are you doing here? It was like, whoa, what a way to start an interview. And let's see. I was how'd you get here? You're from the Midwest. We don't look at, what do you do in the Midwest? It was like, I was like, oh my gosh, where is this going? And I said, well, somehow I brought up the fact that, I was supposed to come out here. I tried to stay with a girlfriend of mine, and she ended up dumping me. And the room just was like, what? And tell us more about this. And so I went into this story about how I got dumped, and this guy, one of the guys, they're like, oh, that's bullshit. And I'm just like, oh my God. And these guys just start going on this girl. And everybody had like an input. And this, I'm sitting back going, this is my interview? like, and they're like, well, how you doing, Bill, about all this? And, and I was like, I don't know. You guys are kind of getting me mad now.
I'm just imagining a bunch of old men in the late 80s, early 90s, just in this library.
It was just like a juxtaposition of brilliant people who are just like, they all wanted this girl. They did not like the story. And they were all in support. And they were like, well, Bill, that's just bullshit. And they made me, I was starting to get mad about this. And then the guy just he looks around the table. What do you think? Hey, Bill, you want to come here and be a resident? And I'm like, and it was out of the match. It was like you could do things back then. And I'm like, this guy's offering me a spot. Didn't ask me anything. It's like it's all over this thing. And I'm like, yes, sir. And everybody's like, yeah. Hey, Bill, glad to have you. You're gonna fit. You're gonna fit in well here. That was my interview. It was the beginning of an amazing. I was very fortunate to be part of a group of people that were, and my fellow residents who were all brilliant people that put up with me. But oh my gosh, it was the beginning of something amazing. But I had the greatest people around me to support me in so many different ways. But I'll never forget that interview. It was the craziest, true interview, exactly like I said, and that's how I got into orthopedics. Who does that? Well, I had some people who wrote me some really good letters. They bring that stuff up.
Of course, at the end of the day, they're there to interview you to see, will we get along with this guy? Yeah. I get that.
Yeah, and
you're at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. I think. I mean, there were some other things said that I can't say in the interview, but we had a lot to discuss, and it was amazing.
You know how sometimes you get those stories of like, or you get that question in school, like if you could go back to any point in history and like view it in real time, like just be a little omniscient fly on the wall and see it. That interview would be in my top 3. I wish I could see my 20-something-year-old dad in this interview with all these attendings, and all they're asking is why you got dumped by this girl and what's wrong with her.
Oh, big, and wanting to know the detail and how did just other things that had happened and what their thoughts were about what's wrong with relationships today and
oh Jesus
and where it went. And I'm just thinking,
you're just sitting there going, really?
Well, I had just come from like I had an interview at the Mayo Clinic, and I came from a very structured interview. I mean, I had their lead. It was a little odd there. I had their lead oncologist, oncological surgeon, who's very well known at the time, written parts of chapters of books, and just like my guys, but just a totally different crew. Okay, this is Mayo Clinic.
Yeah,
very structured. And this guy started whistling a bird song in my interview, and he goes, and I'm like whistling like a bird, and I'm listening. I'm looking at him, and he's like, "Young man, do you know what bird that is?"
Wait, this is the Mayo Clinic one?
This is the Mayo Clinic.
Yeah.
And I had no fucking idea. I didn't know it was a bird. That's how that interview started. Right? And very, just very Socratic. I mean, it was just, going into cases, and it was, just like it should be.
Yeah.
And then I come from that to, and I think something very similar. I was at Yale, where same thing, very good, very straight, structured, and I'm like doing my little tour, and here I am in New York, and this happened, and I'm just like, I felt like I found my group, like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, is this real? Am I missing something? Am I going to walk out of this room and they're going to tell me later, Like, are you fucking kidding me? It was just, I can't explain it to you. And but I can now afterwards, that these were really pioneers, excellent people. They helped me become the person I am, and as my fellow residents did, who were all same type of person, brilliant or driven, that type of thing.
We're going to take a pause right there. Join us next week as we continue the conversation of Who's Dr. Seeds. Thank you for joining the Redox Revolution, and we will see you soon.